Hello everyone and welcome back to my AutoCAD beginning AutoCAD 2022 exercise workbook for Windows. Exercises, we're going to go through chapter 3 in this video. I want to apologize for the delay between videos. I know that a lot of people, I had a good bit of positive response from the first video from colleagues and friends and things like that, as well as some strangers on the internet. So I appreciate all the support on that. I just haven't, I've been so busy, I haven't had time to get back to it, but I'm going to try to do this again to where I'm getting back to weekly videos and things. So let's jump into it. We're going to cover chapter 3 in the book. And if you watch the first video, it'll show you how to start your templates, and it covers all the exercises in chapter 2. I do not discuss chapter 1 because it's just navigating the program. So if you've made it to this point, there's no need for me to go into any of that anyway. So if you go to sheet 3-2, it discusses how to draw a circle and talks about how there's 6 different options. Before I open up, this is basically up here and everything, but I want to show you how to go ahead and open up your file for the exercise that we're going to be doing today. What you want to do is go to New, and we're going to go to Browse Template, and go down here to wherever you've got your wherever you've got your template saved. If you match what I did, we're right here, and I want to open up that template. Then I'm going to hit Save As, go back to that same folder, AutoCAD Workbook Exercises Chapter 3, and we're going to save this as, let's see, what's the name of that? Bear with me just a second. I think this is going to be 3A is the one we want to do. Yeah, we can do 3A. But I think I want to make sure that I match, yeah, exercise. Okay. So we want to name this exercise 3A. And if you notice, it's going to save it as a DWG file from the DWT because we open it with a template that we created in the last video. So we go ahead and hit save. File organization is very important. So just make sure you're laying this out. If you're going through any kind of college class and you're trying to manage your homework and these exercises, is very easy to get lost in the weeds and misplace stuff if you don't have a good filing system. So what I'm doing is not necessarily the greatest and the only way to do it, but it's a good starting point. You can kind of go from there, and it'll give you an idea at least. Everybody has their different methods. So, all right, circles. So, if you go to sheet 3-2, it talks about circles and all the different ones that you can do and things like that. I'm going to show you quickly over here. If you drop this down, you do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they're basically broken up into the 3 categories to where when you draw the circle, you can specify the radius, and it shows you right here, this is what the radius is. You've got the first point to the second point. That's the, if you did math, geometry, trigonometry, any of that stuff. Radius is the middle of the circle to the outside of the circle, or the center. Diameter is the distance from outside edge to outside edge all the way through. So you've got those 2. And then you've got circles creating based on points. So if I were to click, this point and this point, it's going to create a circle around those points. It's likewise with this, but it gives you 3 points to click. And then you have tangent, tangent, radius, and tangent, 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 to where if you have 3 different areas, you can kind of click on them. And all these are going to give you a quick preview of what that looks like if you were to have an example. So like right there, it's drawing between what I would say is a sun and a moon. You've got, you're clicking tangent to tangent. It's going to ask you for a radius based on that. You go from there, but we'll cover each one of these. So if I were to go in and click on the center radius, and then I come just somewhere over here, what it wants me to do is specify the center point for the circle. So I can either click somewhere, or I can manually type in that actual number. So down here in this bottom left corner, that's going to be your 0, 0. So I'm just going to pick somewhere over here, let's say 5 inches. And now that I've selected the center, it's asking me, okay, how far, what's your radius on this thing to go out? And you can see that I'm going from the center to the edge of the circle, right? The little dashed line. So let's say that I wanted it to be 2.5. Click OK. So now when I click this, if I come up here and I measure the radius, it's 2.5. The diameter is 5 because the diameter would be twice what the radius is, and the radius would be half the diameter. So I can also select distance if I wanted to pull maybe somewhere between, you know, here to here, different things. Not super important, just want to show you that as an option. Second option for a circle is the diameter. So you do the same thing. You click a point or type in a manual point. I'm going to just click here. And now, if you notice, see, even though I'm showing the dash line and it's coming out the same way the radius did, if you look at that imaginary dimension line right there, it's showing something different. So then let's type in 2.5 like we did last time. And if you notice, it's half the size of what the previous one was because we entered in the same number that we did for the radius. But this time we entered in the diameter. So the diameter of this thing is the same as what the radius was before. So the radius now, as you can see, if I hover over this node, is telling me it's 1.25, which is half of 2.50. So that's how you do a diameter and radius circle. Probably the two most common that I use. 2-point. So it wants me to specify an endpoint for the diameter. And again, you can type this in or you can select a point. So if I select here and then I select here, I've drawn a circle all the way around my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Because I told it I want the outside of the circle to be from here to here. Next one is the 3-point. So if I go from here to here to, let's say, somewhere maybe here. So you can see my circle's touching here, here, and then that other point that I picked. So these are all very situational, and again, you can kind of see from this example, it's going to show right here the 3 different points. So if you were trying to draw a circle in that line, you could do some math, try to measure it, figure it out, all that stuff. But the computer program actually saves you time. So that's why that's an option. The tangent radius. So if I specify the first tangent, let's say that I want it to be here, here, and then it wants me to specify what the radius is. Let's say that I want to do 2.5 again. So this is a 2.5. This is the same first circle we did, but now I've aligned it to be here and here, if that makes sense. So the tangent of the circle is aligned here. The tangent of the circle is aligned here because of those things that I just chose, and then it asked me to specify the radius. Very good for drawing any kind of angled members in AutoCAD. Finally, we have tangent, which is it's just going to ask me to draw a tangent here, and then let's pick one there. Now, the 3 places that I picked, it put the circle there, there, and there. And really, that's all there is to know. These are very, again, they're developed this way for different situations, so it really depends on what you're using it for. Another way, you can type in circle, and it's going to give you the option. Down here on your command bar, you have the center point for the circle, or you can do 3-point, 2-point, tangent, radius, or tangent. So you can select the different types of circles you want to use simply based on what we're doing down here. So you don't have to keep coming up here and clicking back and forth or anything like that. Also, something to note, with the line, polyline, and a few of these other commands, anything that has a drop-down arrow that has multiples, in this case we have 6 different circle types that we can draw, whatever the last one you used will be the one that stays in the command. So if I were to come down here and click 3-point, if I press escape, I can come up here, and if I click circle again, I'm back in my 3-point. If you want to switch back to radius, diameter, 2-point, 3-point, whatever you're wanting to use, click that one, and then you can go there. Or you can simply, again, type in the command circle, and you've got, you've got center point for diameter. If I were to type in any of this stuff down here, it can change. So just that's basically it for circles. You have different options. So the next command we're going to cover, if you go to sheet 3-4, is the rectangle command, and it's basically just a closed rectangular shape. You can use it for a square. It's one object, not 4 individual lines, which means, if I go here and I click rectangle, and I click my first point here, and then it wants the next point here. And you can go any way with this. So I could make it, my top left corner to my bottom right, my bottom left to my top right, my bottom right to my top left, or my top right to my bottom left. So you can literally go anywhere you want to within the quadrant this way. So I'm going to click here, and when I select this object, notice that it's not 4 different lines. It's one object. No matter what line you click on, it's one entity, which is good. This is what we want, right? Because you can manipulate this thing as one object instead of having to move different lines, copy, things like that. So that's the rectangle command. You basically have 2 points that specify a length and a width, and if you need something specific, you could go from here to there for different points. You can click and specify the first corner. So let's say I want it to be 1, and then down here I have a few options. I can specify the area, the dimensions, or the rotation. So let's specify the area, and let's say that I want it to be 5. And it wants to calculate based on length or width. Let's say length in this case. So if the length of this is going to end up being, let's say, 2, it's drawn me a rectangle with an area of 5 based on the length of 2. So if you're looking for some kind of yard perimeter or property line, something like that, that's where this kind of comes in handy. The next thing is, if we click here, I can go to dimensions. So let's click dimensions, and it specifies the length. So let's do a 5, and let's do a 3. Whoop, not a 33, a 3. And now it's specified 5 for the width, 3 for the length, and it's wanting me to put it based on this first point that I selected. So click here. That covers the rectangle, and this is a 5x3 rectangle. Next is the rotation. So if I click R for rotation, or go down to the bottom and click that, it's going to ask me to specify the rotation angle or pick a point. So let's say I want it at 45 degrees. Now I'm drawing my rectangle at 45 degrees. And I can still come back and say, okay, D for dimensions, and I want it to be a 2x3, and click enter. So it's a 2x3 rectangle, but it's turned 45 degrees. So you don't actually have to rotate this thing after you draw it. That is an option, but you don't have to. You can do it within the command. Something to note, it stays at whatever rotation you specify until you close AutoCAD completely. So if I want the rotation to be back to 90 or 0, I need to go back here and say, okay, I want my rotation to be 0, and then I can specify a normal rectangle again along the 90 or 0 lines. You have other options within the rectangle command to specify the first corner point, which is what we've been doing, or you can specify chamfers, elevations, fillet, thicknesses, and widths. So if I say chamfer, what it's going to ask me to do is specify the distance for a rectangle. So if I want to go from here to, let's say I want the chamfer distance to be 1, and then it specifies the second chamfer distance. Let's also make that 1, and then I specify my corner point from there up. Whoop, hang on, I did that wrong. Hang, back up. Alright, chamfer. We want the chamfer to be 1 and 1, and then when we draw a rectangle now, you can see the chamfer is around all 4 edges. And what that is, if I were to come here and draw a line, if I say 1, draw another line and say 1, it chamfered that 1 inch and 1 inch on all 4 sides. And you can specify chamfers by lengths, angles, different things. So again, if I go into chamfer, I can specify the distance. So I could make one of them 1, and then let's do the next one, say it's 3, and then I want to come in here and pop in my rectangle. Even though it doesn't like it's drawing it straight, the reason why is because I'm going over 1, down 3, over 1, down 3, and so on. Another option is the elevation, which wants me to specify the elevation of the rectangles. Oh, I keep clicking that right there. Let's say that I want it to be 2, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to draw this. That has to do with this axis, which I don't have my cube turned on where you can see it, but essentially I've come up 2 inches off of the 0, 0. So when I draw this rectangle, it's not being drawn flat at the 0, 0 plane along the z-axis. So I'm going to back up just a hair, get back here. I don't do a whole lot of 3D in AutoCAD. I mainly use Revit for my 3D modeling, but if you wanted to, you could. So fillet is another command. So if I wanted to specify the fillet radius, let's say 1 inch, and then it wants me to draw from here to here. A fillet is basically a rotated corner or a rounded corner at the side, and the fillet is a radius of 1 inch where these lines would meet each other. So we can go over the fillet command in future videos and things like that, but it's right here. You see how it kind of, I'll show a display quickly of what it does, but essentially it rounds and fillets the edges of objects to where instead of it being a straight 90 degree, you give it a curve. So you can specify a fillet for a rectangle as well. Thickness, we can type in T for thickness and then specify the thickness. Let's make the thickness 0.5 inches, so it'd be half an inch. And then when I draw it, it's going to show up. Maybe I need to go a little bit thicker so it can be more apparent. Let's try that. T for thickness, and let's make it 2. Why is my thickness not turned on? Is there something going on with my line weights? Give me just a second here. Let's see what's going on with my thickness. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not familiar with the thickness command being what it is. I was confusing it with the width command, which is an additional one. But essentially what it is when you click your rectangle command and you come down here for thickness, and let's say that I want it to be, let's say 2. Well, when I draw this, I was thinking that it does what the width command does, which changes the width of the actual rectangle. When in reality what it does is it makes the width, or the thickness be the height for the z-axis. So that's on me. I just for some reason thought that they replaced the width command with thickness in a moment of shortcoming there. But anyway, this is what the thickness command does. So again, that's on me for not being a 3D modeler in AutoCAD. I didn't know that you could do that. So anyway, there's that command. And then finally we have width, which is the one I'm going to stick it for. So if I type in 1 and then I draw my rectangle, see how much thicker my rectangle is? It's 1 from out to out, and that's what I was confused about for thinking, mistaking the thickness for width. So again, I apologize for that. That's just a command I'm a little unfamiliar with. But anyway, that covers everything that you can really do with a rectangle. And just like any other object in AutoCAD, you can copy it, as you need to. You can delete it, you can move it. It's an object that you're creating. So the next thing I want to go over is the grid and increment snap, and that's on sheet 3-7. And you can get to that from your drafting settings, which is DS for draft D settings. Go here. and then it's the first one on your snap and grid on your drafting settings, and you can hit your F9 key and your F7 key to kind of control some of the things. So if you have your grid turned on, you can kind of see it in the background right there. If I click this off, nothing's going to happen until I apply it. But essentially, these grid lines that you see right here faintly are part of that. The snap, which is your F9 key, controls the distance between these actual grids. So right now I've got my X spacing and my Y spacing at 1/4 of an inch, and if I turn my snap on, my mouse will move at that distance. So let's go ahead and do that just so I can kind of show you what's happening. And if you notice, right now I'm in a free movement because I don't have a command going, right? So I'm just able to move my mouse like normal. But when I come in and I hit a command, now you can see how my mouse is kind of, I'm moving it. You can't see my hand, but my mouse is kind of snapping. So I know that these are in 1-inch square increments, because if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, I've closed the distance. And if we go back to our draft setting commands, we're at 1/4 of an inch. So if I change this to be 1 inch and 1 inch, I click OK, and then draw my line. Well, now I'm moving. See the distance that it's hopping now? So this is a method that you can use to draw more accurately within the AutoCAD command, instead of randomly clicking points and things like that. Like, say for example, if I want to go here and I want to draw a line that's 2 inches, instead of taking the time to type in 2 inches, I could just go here. And if I know I need to come over 3 inches, I can just go here, down 1, and then back to where I started. So there's a lot more accuracy that comes into play if you use the increment snaps for drawing. And you can change it to be unequal spacing. Right now, if I change this one to be 2 and I click OK, go back to my drafting settings, they both change to 2 even though I typed in 1. So if I take off equal X and Y spacing, and let's say I change this one to 0.5, and then I change this one to 1, click OK, you'll notice when I draw my lines, going this way, 1, 2, 1, 2, this way, 1, 1, 1, 1. So then going back here, I like to keep it at equal spacing, and 1/2 inch is what I like to draw on. You do have your grid spacing here, which is what these lines are. Right now they're at 1 inch, right? So if I have this set to 1/2 inch and I move from here to here, it would take 2 clicks. So 1, 2. If I change this to be 1/2 inch and then click OK, see how it changed the scale in the background? If I click line, now I'm hopping. Each one of those is a 1/2 inch node. So visually this is helpful as well. And if you hit F7, see it turns the grid off. But if I turn on my line, I'm still snapping to be 1/2 inch. See how it's going like that? So just because you can't see it does not mean that it is not there. You can also change the grid behavior to be adaptive, display grid beyond limits, follow dynamic UCS, all that stuff. At this point in the book, we're not going to get into any of that. I think that we covered a little bit later on, but your template should have all 3 of these unchecked, so make sure that that is the case. And right now for the snap type, we're going to stay on grid and rectangular. We're not going to mess with any of this stuff yet, because that's going to change the way that you draw. So the only other thing is the grid style. You can display them as dotted grids instead of solid lines. So you could say 2D model space, click OK. See, as now it's going to pop up as dots. So this is kind of like in math class whenever you used to have to draw the shapes based on coordinates. You know, if I were to say, draw me a line at 2, 2, or 2 and 2, right there it would be. See how it shows X and Y is 2 and 2, and then it's going to come up, and let's say it needs to go up to 3.5. You know, it looks very similar to that. I quite like the dots, but for the purpose of what we're doing, we're going to turn it off. So that's some grid manipulation that you can do, and that's really honestly up to your interpretation of how you want to do that. So now let's get into layers. Layers are one of the most important things in AutoCAD. hands down. These things, if you think about when you draw, the way that I was explained is imagine a sheet of glass, and say that I draw my doors are all on a sheet of glass. So I come down here and I've got some kind of weird, door there, some kind of weird door there. Well, then when I come back and I change it to be a hidden line, and I'm going to draw some kind of, maybe a floor or something, right, around it. These are not in the same plane, even though they are in the same plane. They're separated from each other by laying one over the top of each other. And the way that I can show that best, I'm going to skip around a little bit in the book here and really show you a few things. So I'm going to draw a line straight down, draw another line straight down, and then I'm going to switch to a different layer here and go across, go across, go across. And actually, let's do it like this. I need a little bit thicker of a line here, so let's go to object line. There we go. See, there we go. Something a little bit thicker. Okay. If you notice, I drew these two first. So right now, they're behind these two layers. If you were to think about stacking them like cards or sheets of glass or something like that. Okay. I can select these three layers, and then I have the ability to come over here to modify and send them to the back. If I do that, let's change these to solid layers. Let's do door. See how they're overriding and now they're over the top of the object line layer? Well, if I select that and then I say bring to front, come back over here, now they're on top of it. And I know this isn't directly in the book immediately, but I just wanted to quickly cover that. I feel like this is the best way to learn this, is that your layers are not all in the same place, ever. One is on top of the other whenever you draw. Now, if they're even like this one, if I come here and I say, okay, bring to front, now these are in three different stacks. If that makes any sense. That layer is below that layer is below that layer. And then you can come here and again bring to front. Well, then this layer is on top of both of these two. So just something to keep in mind when you're drawing. If you can remember it like that, it'll help you a lot through controlling and manipulating your layers. But essentially, your layers have different icons here that you can use. So the book gives you examples about turning things on or off and things like that. So I'll go through that really quickly. So if I have my object line, my bricks, and then let's do the dimension line like this. Okay. Well, if I come up here, I have this little light bulb, and that's turn a layer on or off. If I click that for the bricks, notice it's gone now. And if I come up to the bricks layer and try to draw, it's going to say turn the current layer off. And I can draw lines all day, right? You're not going to see anything. What if I come up here and I turn the layer back on? There's all my lines. So they are still there, you just can't see them. And this is for printing and things like that. Whenever you don't want to see certain things show up on a certain plan, or you can easily manipulate, in this case, I'm turning the brick layer off. Let's say you're doing some kind of wall section for a house, and you don't want to see any of the brick veneer, but you've got a layer for that stuff. You can turn it all off and kind of control what it does. So it's very handy. The next one is the freeze or thaw. So I'm going to draw my brick layer back. And if you notice, it only turned off the one I selected. Freeze or thaw is this little sun right here. So if I say freeze, whoops, sorry, you can't freeze the current layer. Let's freeze the dimension layer. Okay, so it went from a sun to a snowflake, which means it's frozen. Frozen layer means that it's very similar to on and off, but it's not visible, and it can't be edited or plotted. So plotted is whenever you print, right? So if you hit print, you're not going to see this because it's turned off essentially. but you also can't do anything to it. So if that layer is frozen, there's nothing that can be done to it. So just hit Control Z to go back, and that will also unthaw the layer, but you could also just click it simply like this. Now let's go to the object line, and then we have this little padlock. If I click it, it puts it on a blue padlock, and unclick it, it opens it. So locked layer, unlocked layer. If I lock that layer, I can still see the layer and I can grab it, but if I try to move it, it won't let me. Grab it and I try to copy it, it won't let me. So a locked layer you can still see, but you can't edit it, and they will also still be printed. So essentially what this is good for is if you get the perimeter of your house done or the shape of an object done and you don't want that to change, but you still need to draw something on top of it, you could lock that layer that you drew it on so nothing ever happens to it. You know, if you get some sticky fingers or butter fingers and you accidentally move something you're not supposed to, this can help you keep you from doing that. So it's very, very handy. Let's turn that off. So next, well, if I can click it, good Lord. There we go. Next is the color of the layer. So the color of the layer is just something that you, again, that's up to you. This is what the template comes with. We've got white, magenta, the green, the gray, red, blue, cyan, all these different colors. If I were to try to change one by clicking on it, I can now go here to this index of colors and I can click one of the base colors in AutoCAD. I can change it to these different colors based on number, and it gives you the RGB over there as well for what it is. So there's the specific color you want. You can come in and you can, you know, click and say if I wanted this yellow one, or I wanted this kind of a mustardy color, or, you know, maybe this light purple pink, something like that. You can change all these without modifying anything to the layer itself. And then you have this color wheel over here. You can change the hue, saturation, luminance, all these different things. So depending upon what company you go work for, they may have a specific, you know, all of this stuff can be manipulated to show what they want to show. For the purposes of what we're doing, we're not going to change any of this. We're going to leave it alone just like it is, how it came in the template. I just want to show you that you have the option to change those things. I like to have all my layers that I'm going to end up using on different colors just so it's easy to see. In this, they have, you know, doors and hatches are the same, phantom lines and hidden lines are the same, things like that. So usually to me a color has to do with the thickness of something. That's at least how we do it at my office. So you can also go to your layer properties, and what that does is it pulls up all the layers in the job, and it gives you the option to come in here and you can turn it on or off, freeze it or thaw it, lock it, and then we have a few other things that you can do. So if you hit this little printer, see how it's got the little red dash right there? That means that whenever you go to plot, even though I can see, you know, if I come down here and I say, let's do the object line. If I try to print this sheet of paper right here now, the object line anywhere that it's at, even though I can see it, I can copy it, I can manipulate it, it's not going to print. It won't show up, and it's because it's turned off right here. So it's a non-print layer. And that's good for if you've got things in the border you don't want to show up when you print for clients or something, but you still need to see them for what you're doing. This is very handy. Or something maybe you need to trace over, but you don't want someone else to see when you print it. It's good for that. We talked about changing the color. This does the exact same thing, pulls up the same wheel. And then here's some new ones as well. So we have line type. If I click on this, it's going to ask me for what line do you want to use. And right now the preloaded in lines for this template show a center line, continuous line, a hidden line, a phantom, and a phantom 2. You can go and load in more lines from the standards that come within AutoCAD, and there are even some things online that you can get that are these .lin files that are very specific. So you could load in ..dash or, you know, different things like that. So just to keep in mind, and they mean different things too. So if you wanted to draw on a fence line, you've got this. If you wanted to draw on a gas line, you've got that. You've got all these different things that you can do. We have zigzag lines, tracks, all kinds of stuff that are useful. So I'm going to cancel that, and then over here we have the weight of the object. So these are in millimeters, and we have the default, which is basically 0, 0. Thinnest being 0, 0, thickest being 2.11. And as you can see, I mean, this object line is relatively pretty thick, and we're only at 0.70, so we're a little over the halfway mark for the thicknesses here. These things can get pretty thick, so keep that in mind too. If you want something to show up and really stand out, you have the option to do that. The transparency of an object, you can put it in from 0 to 90. You can type it in if you want to, or you can just click something. So if I say 50% transparent, now that line is still there. I can manipulate it and do everything I want to, but the transparency has been changed to where it shows up about, again, 50% transparent of what it originally could have been. So I'm going to set that back to 0. You don't really have to do any of this. I'm just showing you so you'll know as we're covering through these lessons kind of what you can do with all these different layers. And you can change the line weight, and it will immediately update. So if I come in here and I click OK, see, it just got thicker. We're going to leave that at 70, or 0.70 rather. And then finally, you've got the viewport bit here at the end. This is for whenever you, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain that. It's really more of a way to turn it off in a certain view. So right here, I was trying to see if maybe it would let me highlight over the top of it and explain what it is. Let's see. No, I don't really have a way to do it. Basically, what it lets you do is you can freeze or thaw this layer in a new viewport. So depending upon, and I know we don't know what viewports are yet, so it's kind of hard for me to explain that, but maybe we save this for later. I'll save this for later. Sorry, I'm not trying to do too much at once. I'm just trying to make sure I cover as much as I can. And if you want to give descriptions, you're welcome to do that too. So you can maybe remember what it's for, but really, for something this small, it's all in the name. You can select all of your layers at once by right-clicking and going to Select All. And then if you want to turn them all off, you can. If you want to turn them all on, you can. It's a quick way to do it when you get a lot of layers. You can also create new layers. So say that this isn't enough for you and you need to make something new. You have the option up here for new layer. You can also hit Alt plus N. You can new layer and freeze. You can delete layers, or you can set to current layer. So see this little check mark right here? Right now I'm on the brick layer. Whoop, I don't want to move that. And it's got the check mark. So if I click this, it's going to set my section line to, or window. Let's do window. Well, then when I come back over here, it changed it to window. So if you don't want to open up that menu and scroll, and you want to keep this one open on a secondary monitor or something, you can do that, and you can quickly get to your other layers. You can click right here to create a new layer, and it's going to develop one for you. It's going to be basically a copy of whatever the last layer you had selected was. You can name it whatever you want, set it, lock it, change the color, all that fun stuff. So let's delete that one. And then for right now, I think that covers pretty much everything that we want to talk about for layers. So let's go on to the actual exercises. Let's delete this, click OK. And the instructions for exercise 3A are start a new file using the inch helper or metric helper. We've done that. We're on actual exercise 3A right here. And then draw the lines below on sheet 3-17 is draw a line command. So I'm going to go into line. I'm going to turn on my ortho, which is F8. So I don't have this free open and ended here. It's locked into orthogonal shapes. And then turn on the increment snap. I've got that on. That's your F9 key. Select the appropriate layer, line command, and then draw a line. So the very first one that it wants us to do is the border line. So if I come up here and then I want to draw a line from, let's say I want to go from here to here, and then I'm going to come down and let's do center line next. Come down here to here, and then I want to do dimension, line, there to there. We've got door, hatch, and hidden line. Door, hatch, and then we're going to go to hidden line. This is all you really have to do right here. Object, phantom, plants, object, phantom, plants. I know this is very repetitive. I think the book even kind of makes a joke and says, "Are you noticing a pattern here?" Or maybe doesn't make a joke, but try to make, you know, some humor in the situation of what you're actually having to do. You're just drawing. I think it's just to build up dexterity between switching between layers to start drawing. Oop, make sure I'm on the right one here. Wall. And then window. So all my layers are the exact same length. They're in the same place. We're done. So we can go here and hit Save As, Exercise 3A, click OK, Replace, and now we're going to go on to the next exercise. So I'm just going to save this, and we're going to call this exercise 3B. Save. I'm going to delete everything I did there. Flip to the next sheet, which is exercise 3B on sheet 3-18, and it's going to have us draw some circles and rectangles. So start a new file, we've done that. Change the increment snap, so let's go to DS, and we want to change the increment snap to 0.20 and the grid spacing to 0.40. So let's do 0.20, and we want this to be 0.40. We click OK. Now we come back to the book and it says make sure snap and grid bars are on. That's going to be your F9 and your F7 keys. Draw the objects below using the layer object line. Review pages 3.2 or 3-2 through 3-6 for circle and rectangle. Do not dimension. We're going to dimension soon. So let's go into the object line layer, and it wants us to draw a circle with the diameter symbol. So the diameter symbol is the little circle with the slash through it. It looks kind of like this. Let's do that. And let's draw a line through that, and then there is a diameter symbol in AutoCAD, but I'm just going to quickly do this. So that's what a diameter symbol looks like. So if you see that in the book, this is what they're asking for. So let's draw the circles. We have a diameter of 3.2 for the largest circle in that first exercise. So we're going to go to center diameter, and we're going to click here, and we're going to say 3.2. And then we're going to draw another circle in the center. We're going to go out, and it looks like we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. So I'm assuming we're going to go 2.40. There's another one. Whoop. Like that. And then our fourth circle. Like that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. Okay. Now it wants us to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to go ahead and reset my chamfer to be 0 and 0. My elevation to be 0. My fillet needs to be 0. My thickness needs to be 0. And my width needs to be 0. I need to change all that stuff. We're right here for our circle, so we're going to go out. Let's go right here for this one. And we want it to be 3.2 wide by 3.2 tall. So we're actually going to draw a perfect square. So I'm going to type in D for dimensions, and we're going to say 3.2 by 3.2. There's our rectangle. I'm going to hit enter to specify the point. There we go. And now it wants us to draw a circle inside of this. So you could do some math in your head if you wanted to and just say, okay, I know the out to out is 3.2, so I could just make the diameter 3.2, but AutoCAD just doesn't want us to do that. They want us to supply a 3-point connection here, or a tangent, tangent, tangent. So I could go here and I could say, all right, I want that, that, and that. And that's going to give me my circle within those 3 tangents. So I've got it. I don't have to do any math. It's done for me. And then finally, we want another rectangle. And this one's going to be a true rectangle. We're going to come down here, pick a point, and we're going to say it is 4.8 inches wide. So 4.8. And it is, oops, I made a mistake. Get a little ahead of myself. Click here, specify D for dimension, and then we want 4.8 by 3.2. Okay, so there's our rectangle, and then it wants us to draw some lines. So I'm just going to go to the line command, go from this square to that square, line command, that square to that square, and then it wants me to go from the center. So I'm going to go here. Whoop, boop, boop, boop. So we're going to go there to this one to snap, and I don't want it to snap. If you're having trouble with that, if it's trying to snap, like right there, if I click this, it's going to try to pull an arrow down for me. Hit your F3 key to turn off your snaps. Line through the center, just like that. There's exercise 3B done. So we're going to hit save as, exercise 3B, save, yes. We're going to hit save as and go to exercise 3C, save. Alright, delete everything we just drew. Now we're on exercise 3C on sheet 3-19. The instructions are start a new file. We just did that. Draw rectangles below using the options dimension, chamfer, fillet, width, and rotation. Use the object line layer. We're on the object line layer. And it looks like we have 4 rectangles we have to draw. So the first rectangle, if I click here, it's going to be a length of 3 and a width of 2 with a chamfer of 0.5 and 5. So let's go to C for chamfer. And our chamfer is going to be 0.5 and 0.5. We're going to specify, let's specify this corner here, and we want the width of this thing to be 2 by 3. So let's do D for dimensions, and we're going to say specify the length is going to be 3 and the width is going to be 2. Click there, that rectangle's done, and I'm just going to move it up just a hair to get it kind of enough room for us. So there's your first one. Your second rectangle is a rectangle with some fillets, so we want to do the fillet command with a fillet of 0.5, and we want to specify the first point here, and then give it some dimensions, and it looks like we're going to do another 3 by 2, so we'll say 3, 2. There's your filleted rectangle. Your next one's going to be a square rectangle with an angle of 45 degrees, so rectangle. We want the chamfer to be 0, 0. We want the fillet to be 0, and we want to click the first point, specify the rotation. We're going to say 45. Then we're going to give it the dimensions, and we want it to be a 3 by 2. And let's move it just a hair so it's out of the way. And your final rectangle on exercise 3 is going to be a rectangle with some more width to it. So then we're going to go to rectangle and just click a point, go to R for rotation, change that back to 0, and then we need to specify, let's see, we changed that, so I'm going to go ahead and back out of that one now that we got the rotation set, or yes, the rotation set back, and it wants me to change the width, so I'm going to hit W, and we want the width to be 0.2, and then we want the first corner to be right there. We're going to give it some dimensions, again 3 and 2, and there is your fourth and final rectangle for exercise 3C. Very easy to do. So we're going to hit save as exercise 3C. Yes. Save as exercise 3D. Save. I'm going to delete those. And then this one is we're drawing a little house on a few different layers. So I have start a new file using the inch helper. We just did that. Draw the objects below using the following layers: roof, wall, window, door, and plants. You can change the snap and grid settings to whatever you like it to be. You decide on when to turn ortho snap on or off, and all objects must be placed accurately. All lines must intersect exactly. So let's draw the roof first. So we're going to go to the roof layer, and I'm going to go to line, and let's go from, let's fix our snap and grid first. So DS, let's change this back to 0.5, whoop, 0.5 and 0.5. We're going to click OK. So then I want to draw a line from here all the way down to right there. Then when I go up one, all the way down, and then down one. Okay. Then I want to draw a line. Same here. We're going to go up 2 and over 2. We're going to go up 2 and over 2, and then all the way down. There's our roof. And then we need to draw the walls next. So let's switch to the wall. And then I think we want to go one. Let's go, yeah, let's just go one in. And we're going to go all the way down to the bottom here, about right there. I'm going to go all the way over here, all the way up, like that. So there's our walls. Now we need to do the windows. So if I go to the window here, about halfway in between is where we want it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Let me make sure that's right. And 16. We have 16. I counted one too many. So we have a total of 8 inches. So we want to draw probably, let's say somewhere, let's go down 1. And let's go in, we have 8 inches. I kind of want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't really like that one as much as I thought I would. So let's make it just a little bit longer by stretching it out that way. Okay, that's good. We're going to go down 2, 1, 2, over, 1, 2. We're going to draw another line in the center. And then it looks like we have increments of 2. Maybe that's what I should have done. I should have just picked it based on that. So we say 8 inches would be halfway. 8 inches is the full way. So let's do this. Let's go line and let's go 4 inches. There we go. So we know that that line's the center. And then we're going to go over 1, 2 for that one. 1, 2 for that one. I was just a hair off there. So we're going to go 1, 1, 1, 1, whoop, 1, and 1. Now we can draw our other lines. And if you notice, none of my snap is on right now. I'm just using the grid, which is the whole point of the exercise. So make sure you're doing that. I know that this is not the most efficient way, but it's the way that we want to do for right now. So I've got that. I'm going to switch to my door and draw it now, because we know the door is going to be one space in between, like this. Let's go line all the way down, all the way down, like that. And then we know the door is going to be in the middle, so if we go right here and go down like that. And we know we've got some circles, so I'm just going to do a radius for the circles, and it looks like those are right in the center, probably about right there, right? Well, 0.5 is way too much, so I'm going to do 0.25. I like that a lot better. So let's go over here and go to circle, and we're going to do 0.25. Something like that. That still looks a little big, doesn't it? Let's delete those. I want to match the drawing as closely as possible. Let's do half of that. So let's do 1/8 of an inch at 0.125. That looks tons better. 0.125. There we go. And now I want to draw my other windows. So I'm going to go back to my window layer, go to my line command, and go 1, 2. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Go to my line command, we're going to go there, and go to my line command, we're going to go there. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Okay, so we should be looking very close to what the actual house looks like. It's not going to be dead on, but it should be very close. So now we want to go to the plants layer, and then we're going to draw a few lines. So let's go 1, 2, like that. We're going to go up like that, over like that. Try to match that other one just a little bit, and then over one more, maybe like that. There we go. So we're going to go up 1, 2, whoop, 1, 2. Try to make these things symmetrical here. Like so. And then I want to draw some circles. Let's give it a radius of that 0.125 again. Another circle, 0.125, 0.125, 0.125, 0.125. So you're going to do the exact same thing over here. 0.125. And this is your first step in drawing something accurate in AutoCAD. It's kind of opening up the doorway to get you to be more precise with your drawings. This is not the most accurate way to do it, but it's a really good way to introduce you on how to do it. So there's our house. It should look identical to what's in the book as far as the shape and presentation of it. So let's go ahead and do save as, and this is exercise 3D, so we're going to hit save, yes, and then I want to hit save as. We're going to name this one exercise 3E because that's our next one we're doing. I'm going to hit save, and then this exercise is open exercise 3D. We have it right here. Make layer object current. So if I go to the object layer, let's see, freeze the following layers. It wants us to freeze window and plants. So I'm going to go down to window, and I want to freeze the window, and I want to freeze the plants. Okay. And then it wants me to lock the roof layer. So I'm going to lock the roof layer. And then it wants me to try to erase the roof lines. And then that's it. So if I go here and I click on roof line, I hit delete, it won't let me because it's locked. So now this should look just like exercise 3E in your book. This one's done. So we're going to hit save as, exercise 3E, yes. And then we're going to go on to exercise 3F. So let's save as, exercise 3F. I'll get that capitalization down in a minute. This one doesn't have anything to do with the house, so we're going to get rid of that one. I'm going to go down and I'm going to unfreeze, unlock, and unfreeze my layers. That was a good example of how to show you something that is affected by locking and freezing layers. I deleted everything but what was there. Alright, so 3F. Let's see. Start a new file using the AutoCAD DWT inch or metric file. And we want to load in the line types, zigzag, gas line, and dashed. So let's go to our layers. And we want to go to, let's see, where, I think we're going to be making new layers, fence, gas, and yeah, there we go. So let's go to new layer, and we want to name this one fence. Let's turn on our capitalization here, fence. And then we want to come down here for the, I'm just going to change this as we go here. Let's expand this where you can read it and see it very well. Transparency. There we go. Okay, fence. And you should be able to see this right in your book. It looks like fence is going to be a green layer, so let's change fence to be green. Just click there, click OK. And then we want the layer to be zigzag with 0.20. So let's load in some layers, and we want, what do we say? Zigzag, gas line, and dashed. Zigzag. Click OK. We're going to change it to zigzag. And then we want the thickness of this thing to be 0.02. So we're going to go here and click OK. And then that's all we're going to do for that. The next layer that we need to create, so let's make a new layer. This one's going to be called gas. So let's name this one gas. Then we're going to come over here, and the color of gas needs to be red. So let's change this one to red. And then the layer, or excuse me, line type for the layer needs to be gas underscore line. So we're going to find the G. This is all in alphabetical order. So we do gas line. And then we want to click our gas line, load it in. And then the thickness for this needs to be 0.047. Let's see. 0.047. I don't see that one. Gas line is equal to 1.2. This is what it's actually saying to use. Okay, so what's tripping me up there is that the line weights are showing different things based on if you're in the metric or imperial, I guess. So that one needs to be 1.20. So make sure you catch that. The book shows two different things, and I was reading the wrong one. So this one actually needs to be 0.5. For zigzag needs to be 0.5. Gas line needs to be 1.20. So we've got that. And then let's go to new layer, and we want to do the invisible layer. So we're going to rename it to invisible. And then come over, and it needs to be color. Let's see, what color do we want it to be? Magenta. Let's go magenta. Click OK. And then its layer needs to be on dashed. So let's load in dashed. Okay. Then we want to select dashed. Okay. And the thickness for this one needs to be 0.25. 0.25. Okay. So there's our 3 new layers. We're going to close this. And then I'm going to go in. We're going to draw 3 of them. So we have, in order, is fence, gas, and invisible. So let's go to fence. Let's draw a line first with it. Fence. And then we want gas. And then we want the invisible. Okay, and let's see. Draw these lines approximately 5 inches long. I don't think I did that. Let me make sure that I do that so we do the exercise right. I hate for you guys to get in trouble over me. So let's do fence, line. Let's start here, and we're going to say 5. There you go. Then we're going to go gas, 5. Then we're going to go invisible, 5. That's it for exercise 3F. It's that easy. So we're going to go save as, 3F, save, yes. And then we're going to do save as. We're going to go to 3E, or excuse me, 3G. I'm not going backwards, going forward. And then we're going to delete these guys out. And the instructions are open exercise 3B. So let's actually do this. Let's go to open 3B, click open. Let's close this 3G that we made and say no. Now that we've opened up 3B, let's go ahead and do a save as and save it over 3G. Yes. Okay. Open the Layer Properties Manager. Change the transparency of the object line layer to 70. So I'm going to go up to Layer Properties. I'm going to find the object line layer, and then I'm going to come down here to the transparency, and we're going to change that to 70. Whoop. 70. Click OK. Close it. Should look like it does in the book. Select the transparency status button to show or hide transparency, which you're going to see that. Let's see, where's that at? Okay, sorry about the weird cut. I had to do some other investigating. It's right here on my bar at the bottom. There's a one that's called transparency. Mine was just unchecked, but basically what it's saying is with that there, I can either change it on or off for whenever you're drafting and drawing. So mine's turned on right now. That's all it is. It's always something with AutoCAD that's just a little simple thing that you overlook or mistake. But anyway, that is the end of chapter 3, and we're coming to a close on the video as well. I hope I was able to assist you in learning some of these new commands and how to adjust them. Let's go ahead and save this as exercise 3G. Save, replace, yes. And now we are done. So you should at this point have finished all the exercises for chapter 2 and chapter 3. So we're well on our way to being deep into this stuff. You know, when we get around chapter 10 or 12, that's when we're going to start being really familiar with it. And this is a good chapter to get you there. But anyway, thank you for any and all support on these videos. The more you like it, view it, watch it, share it with your friends, classmates, instructors, things like that, it gives me the ability to do it. So I'm going to finish the book one way or the other, and I'm going to try to do videos weeks apart, but it takes me a couple hours to do these and edit everything. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your support, and we will catch you in the next one.